There are growing calls for urgent interventions to address the country's literacy crisis. This follows that shocking report that 81% of grade 4 learners are unable to read for meaning in any language. An early learning non-profit organization, SmartStart, believes that the recognition of early childhood development plays an essential part of a child's education and it can address the crisis. For more on this, let's bring in Hopolang Selebalo, who's the advocacy lead at SmartStart. Hopolang, thank you for making time for us this afternoon. How do you think the recognition of early childhood development as that essential part of a child's education would help address this reading literacy crisis?
Good afternoon, Clement, and thank you so much for having me on. I just want to track back a little bit in relation to the finding of the pearls. As you correctly pointed out, 81%, it was found that 81% of learners in grade 4 cannot read for meaning in any languages, and that the assessment was conducted in 11 of South Africa's official languages. Obviously, the implications of children not being able to read is that it makes their schooling journey all that much more difficult. We know that the foundation phase is critical in creating grounding for children to succeed in the later years of their schooling. We will struggle with exactly this numeracy and literacy. We see that a number of learners drop out in grade 10 because they aren't able to cope, in grade 12 because they aren't able to cope. So we see that a lot of learners aren't even writing metric, never mind passing metric. And then what will lead us back to your question on access to early learning programs is that quite a significant number of learners also repeat grades in South Africa's education system, including grade 1s. And you may find that in some instances learners are not school ready because they haven't had access to early learning programs. So the ages of 0 to 5 are fundamental for cultivating learners' mental, emotional, physical development. And early learning programs enable this. SmartStart works with the 3 to 5 year old cohort. We are attempting, or at least we seek to ensure that there's an expansion and access to quality early learning programs for South Africa's children so that they are able to get into the schooling system somewhat ready and are able to progress through it fruitfully.
So ECD, as you've outlined, provide that foundational skills that are needed for academic success. And I would imagine government is very much aware of that. But is there greater focus on that level of education, especially given that not all households are going to have access to those programs?
That's a great question. So you may know that the ECD function shifted from the Department of Social Development to the Department of Basic Education last year, in the last financial year, which was 2022-2023. And there's obviously a recognition that this early learning programs fall into the basket of education, into the basket of development, into the basket of ensuring the holistic development of a child. So we do see government starting to pay greater attention to early learning programs. We've heard the Minister of Basic Education in numerous instances this year speaking to the importance of expanding access to quality ECD services. Currently, there are about only 1.6 million children, if I'm getting that number correct, that are in early learning programs. And considering the number of 0 to 5 year old children across the country, that is a drop in the ocean. So in essence, the minister does recognize, the system does recognize, and now it's time for the public to recognize the critical importance that early learning programs play in the development of children. And the work of SmartStart and other organizations that we partner with is to ensure that children in under-resourced communities in particular are able to access those programs.
What can families do, Hopolang, to start their children soon with education, especially those, and I appreciate the work that SmartStart is doing in partnering with a lot of organizations to help bring about that access in these underprivileged communities. But what's your message to families out there? Because they can also do something, especially those that are able to start that education early on in the household, yes, so that the children are better prepared when they enter that schooling system.
That's correct. I think I would say that there are two messages that I would like to convey. One is government focused, in that we need to ensure greater financial resources go towards early learning programs. We need to ensure that there is an expanded, there's an expansion of access to quality learning programs, and so that children are actually, programs exist for children and for families to choose from, and that government also unlocks funding for early learning programs to ensure that practitioners are able to sustain the programs that they run. And then in terms of parental interventions, it is parents participating, facilitating, learning with their children in the homes. The IEA, which administers the early years, that cognitive development, playing with your children, reading to your children, utilizing toys, and furthermore, of course, for other families, increasing that time of development by ensuring that their children are in early learning programs that are able to facilitate development, cognitive development, and such.
Yeah. Hopolang Selebalo, Advocacy Lead at SmartStart. I appreciate your time this afternoon on Newsfeed PM.